introduce Maria and Lila, who are here as our tech support, and without them, this whole container, yeah, they're holding it so beautifully and impeccably, and with their beautiful hearts and smiles. So if there's anything that you need, please write to them. Okay, so welcome to this time we have together, this precious time, introducing the Egyptian Tantra. It's such a vast ocean, and we're going to get a drop of it, but it's a lifetime of exploration. And all this that I'm going to share, and also that we have an experience of a shamanic journey, is just also just the beginning of something that becomes a way of life, a vibration, becomes a living vibration. And I feel that Egypt is coming up in a lot of beings' inner worlds, dreams, memories, psyche, because right now, at this point, this time of something new, some new birth on this planet, Egypt has a legacy that somewhat isn't buried under the sands, but is still remembered within our framework, within our memory, within our system. I'm just going to ask everyone to mute because I'm hearing yeah, great. So Egypt, when you might have seen the word Kemet. When I write Egypt, I write Kemetic, and there's a reason that the word Egypt is actually what was then taken by the Greeks and then shifted, and it's the more Western term. But if you start to read or start to understand the writing of Egypt and the hieroglyphics, and they actually had their own words for everything. So Egypt was Kem or Kemet, and that means the land of the black rich soil on the river Nile that was fertile every time the Nile flooded, this rich black soil that gave life. And just imagining this land that was all desert, and yet on this Nile, when it flooded, every time the star of Sirius would appear in July, the whole Nile would flood. And so that was like kind of that celebration of fertility and life being bestowed into where there is no life. So that sense of fertility was so revered, that sap in our bones, the sap in our life force energy was something so revered and loved. If you can consider how barren the landscape was, that was something that was so precious. Life is so precious. Our life is so precious. Every day waking up as the sun rises for them was an opportunity to be reborn. And every night when we would go to sleep, the soul, like the sun, would set and travel through the underworlds, through the Milky Way, through all the zodiacs, and then every morning be birthed. We would be birthed again, and then we would die and be reborn. So this whole concept of life and death was very, very intimate, and it wasn't something that happened eventually at the end of your life. You would die, and no one talks about it. It was something that existed intimately in every single day. Imagine inviting that into your own life. So when you dream through the dream world, your soul is actually remembering itself, or there's a time for deep rejuvenation and healing, and you're aware of it. And then that emergence of your soul as the sun would burst forth in the morning, the emergence of your nature, your divine nature. So all these forces of nature, which we call gods and goddesses, but they are not gods and goddesses, they're forces of nature. By saying it's a god and a goddess, we've somehow separated ourselves from something that is nature, that we're just a part of. We're nothing, like the more we think we're like this, and this is my name, and no, by actually allowing ourselves to become so in tune that our memory, our mind, our thoughts are synchronized with nature. Can you imagine how powerful, how beautiful, how alive one is? So that's pretty much how they were able to build incredible structures and be so genius in a way, which wasn't something that they were extraterrestrial or not human. No, they were so freaking human. They were actually learning how to become human again. They were so attuned with the resonance and frequencies of nature. Every plant, they could see that there was an incredible geometry, a great synchronicity, a great pattern that moved through everything. By measuring, looking at nature and discovering that a drop of water always measured a centimeter, the metric system was birthed. And from that, they could begin the laws of mathematics as we know it today, which gave the rise to this incredible civilization. but it wasn't that they were getting help from something out of the, non-human. No, they were so logical and so clear in the mind. So this path of the Egyptian path, of the spiritual path, was called the path of Ma'at. You're living with Ma'at. And I'm going to introduce some of the forces of nature. Isis isn't a goddess, as I feel. She is a force of nature that many are tuning into because she contains a certain medicine. Nature is medicine after all. So she's invited, at this time, she's very much sought after, very much awakening in beings' memories and underworlds, because she has a medicine right now for humanity that humanity really requires. But all of them have medicines. Hathor or Heteru also has a beautiful medicine, as does Ma'at. And eventually all the path would lead to becoming so clear to see things as they are. So the mind would be free of the judgments and the doubts and the part of the mind that is constantly analyzing, and from that creating the fear responses. That slowly starts to subside after the path that one walks, after the initiations that happen by being a human and being alive and being constantly needing to meet certain tests or initiations. One eventually comes to Ma'at, which is that part of the feminine or the emotional body has somewhat moved through the turmoils and has moved through those wavy kind of dark waters to come to the other side to see things clearly. Now that was like kind of the laws that governed Egypt, the laws that governed how households. These were the ultimate laws that were to become attuned to nature so that you would live in health and not in dis-ease. But to get there, to Ma'at, it wasn't like be Ma'at and otherwise you're a sinner or otherwise you're doing something wrong. To get to Ma'at, there were certain other forces of nature, other temples that one would visit to awaken, to remember, to heal, to cleanse, to slowly come home. So I'm going to introduce a few of those. And the first temple that was a really important temple because it symbolized pretty much our most basic core human, our core humanity. And that is the temple of Uset or Isis that many of you are starting to feel. And in the anatomy of spirit, when we start to look at our anatomy, yes, of body, but also the anatomy of our spirit, Isis somewhat represents our memories. So everything that we are is somewhat based upon experiences that we've had in the past that slowly mold our response system. So we're basically woven patterns and patterns inside of us of things that have happened before that affect us in this moment. Sometimes someone's saying something to you, your partner, and you're can't even hear exactly what they're saying. It's not clear because your mind has gone somewhere in the past and you're responding not to what is there in the present moment, but to something that happened before. So by working with Isis or Uset, you're starting to somewhat remember yourself. And so those patterns, those kind of programming, slowly, it's like almost like that neurological repatterning. Something starts to unwind. And so you might see the knot of Isis that some of you may see in your inner world. There's something about Isis that deeply touches beings. And it's also her story. So some of you might have already heard this, and I'm going to share it again anyway, for those of you who haven't. Isis was loved because she represented an aspect of divinity that was incredibly human. She was, the way the women would see her, or the way she was celebrated for thousands of years, was the woman who would wash the clothes by the river, the woman who would be at the marketplace, the woman that would listen to other stories, the woman that would sing, the woman that would be at the funerals and be part of the lamenting or the singing there. She was very much part of our human day-to-day life, but in that, to find the spark of divinity in our everyday to-day life. So she was daughter of Geb and Nut. And if we're going to start tapping into the Egyptian mysteries, we'll start to realize that the earth wasn't mother, the earth was actually father. So the earth represented the sap, the almost like the erection that comes from the earth as plants, as trees. And the sky was the mother. Now, this is something beautiful because one of the most basic human woundings is the abandonment wound. And when we feel that when we feel like we're born in a mother's womb, the father is never actually there, really. You're in the mother. And when you're born, either your father's there, fully present, and you can feel his warmth, his nurturing, and also his feminine alive, or he's absent, which sometimes happens due to these fathers also not being loved or nurtured as children. So that primal thing of feeling like, oh my God, I'm abandoned, but actually I'm abandoned by spirit. I'm abandoned by the vast time, space, universe. I'm somewhat the soul that's lost here in this world. And it can feel for the soul, when we start to look at the soul as this very tender, vulnerable part of us, the spark of our soul is so tender when it first arises and emerges. And to feel that it doesn't belong to this universe can be quite confronting, quite feeling like I'm alone. So by bringing Mut, the mother, as this galaxy, as the stars, as the Milky Way, there's this sense of, I'm part of this universal womb, which can feel very nurturing and give the soul, which in Egypt belonged to the stars, its place back in the great home, or in the great, in the great cosmic womb, in the great story of its, that it belongs. It's not separated. Now, these are important foundations if we're going to start practicing Tantra or Egyptian Tantra, is to feel that belonging to earth, the sap and the erection of earth alive inside of you. The resurrection of your spirit, of your soul, is an erection. It's not separated from your inner life force energy. So there's a power and a beauty to the erection that we see celebrated in Egypt. On many temple walls, you see phalluses that are actually, some of them even spraying seed, because this is life, this is nature. And when we attune ourselves to nature, we arise, our spirit, our soul is resurrected. And so there's a beautiful word in resurrection, which is the erection. And so belonging to the stars, belonging to the earth, there's a sense of, okay, something can begin to emerge, which is Heru, the soul, the Horus, our Heru, within Heteru. And these are the Kemetic terms. So Heteru is Hathor, the lady, the house of Horus, the house of the sun, Horus. So she's the home of that. And that's why she's very much symbolized when beings start to tap into Hathor. They start to tap into stars, into constellations, into music, into resonance, into frequencies of sound, taste, color. All these things become living vibrations that activate the body. And that is the beginning of living a tantric kind of lifestyle. As you're attuned, the sounds you hear have an impact on your body. The tastes, you feel them, almost the different notes and symphonies of the taste in your mouth. You can hear the sounds around you, and you can almost hear like the melody of life around you. Becoming aware, like Hathor, is to start to brace your ears. That's why she has these cow-like ears, because she is listening. When we are listening, when we are truly listening, then we're part of the great symphony. We're part of the great artistry of life. So she is the patron of the artists. And with Isis, going back to Isis, her story is that born of Geb and Nut, born her brother Osar, or Osiris, born in the womb of Geb and Nut. They also have two other siblings, Seth and Nephthys, who we're not going to touch on too much in this call, just a little bit. But it is the story of Isis and Osiris that really was a story that was foundational to the Egyptian culture as a myth, as a story, which was that she loved her brother, which was also her partner, because they're the children of divine mother father. And maybe you know that when you have a partner, a beloved that you love so dearly, at times you're so like, ooh, it's like we're born from the same place, and you're so familiar. It's like you could be my brother, my sister, my mother, my child. At moments it's just this shape shifting. So Osiris and Isis were siblings, born of Geb and Nut. And they've pretty much represented the integrity of love and also the connection to humans. They weren't superior or elated in their power. They were very much down to earth, and in that agriculture could thrive. The weaving arts of Isis, the sewing, the making of clothes, the making of baskets, the plowing of lands. All this was very much an important part why Egypt thrived for thousands of years and didn't rise and fall for a long time, because these weaving arts, the agriculture, were very much part of the sacred lifestyle, or like living in alignment with your spiritual life. These were part of the everyday life, part of the everyday spiritual life. So Egypt was flourishing as they were, so to say, ruling. But the concept, the Isis and Osiris ruling means that love was prevailing, logic, loving others as yourself, all these things. So with that, Seth, their brother, became very, very like, that feeling like the first kind of birth or the emergence of envy, of jealousy. And so as Isis and Osiris were together, uh, Seth was plotting something to destroy his brother. He couldn't bear it anymore. And that part of us that lives inside of us, maybe you know it, that part of you that has a little bit of envy and jealousy sometimes, it's part of the human makeup. It's what we do with it and how we react to it that is important. So Seth basically plotted a way to bring Osiris where it was only him and the men that he loved around him in the desert. And he got Osiris very, very drunk and made a casket that fit his body perfectly. And as all the other men that belonged to Seth's kind of, group in the desert, they all tested themselves in the casket, it couldn't fit anyone until Osiris laid inside the casket. And of course it fit. It was created to kill him. And so as he laid inside, the coffin closed. And with that, he tossed him into the Nile. And the basket or the coffin moved all the way up to Byblos, which is now in Lebanon. And Isis, feeling the loss of her beloved, went so insane, so hurt, so crazy, so out of her senses. And this is the part of the story that is really important, is that she completely lost her senses. And sometimes in our life, we lose our senses. We become a little bit erratic. But it's only when she started to grieve and feel her tears and her sorrow, then she came back to her senses. So what's really important about this story is her medicine is the grief. Her medicine is the sorrow. So some of you are tuning into wanting to connect in with the tantric aspects of Isis. One has to remember that one has to be able to grieve and be in sorrow, because that is also connecting to our deepest longing. So I'm sorry to say it isn't something very juicy and sexy right now, but it is something that is fundamental and foundational to activating our current of life from the base all the way up through our crown, especially through the throat and heart, which tend to be the most locked places. That's why many people can't express themselves, or they feel like they're protecting their heart from love, or in lovemaking, they're not fully there, not able to open their throat to release the sound. Because the first way to really tap into the mysteries of Isis is to feel your longing, your deep heart longing, and then also to be able to grieve, to mourn all that is still creating your heart to be heavy. And with that, to sigh, to open, to relax this particular area right here connected with the womb. Now, this is not something that I came up with. This is something that is a story that has come from thousands and thousands of years of circulation, is the laments. There are even papyruses with the laments of Isis and her sister Nephthys for the loss of the beloved. So sometimes if we want to really become juicy tantrikas and tantrikas, it's okay for a while to mourn the loss of the beloved. Some part of us that also longs for the beloved, the true beloved inside of us to emerge, which is the usar inside of us. Now, when she eventually, Isis, because she was a magic woman and she could listen, but she also had the power of insight and foresight, she found the body. of Osiris and went all the way to Byblos. And when she found the body, she was so happy. And as she opened the coffin, but interestingly, one part of his body was missing. Now, some of the stories go that it was a wooden coffin and that the wood somewhat got soft, and then the fish could come in and nibbled and ate away his phallus or his penis. And so there he was, Osiris, but without a phallus. And there she was, longing, so happy to murder them, longing to be impregnated by the seed of life, to be impregnated by the seed. And so with her own power, she was able to fashion a phallus. Some say out of clay, some say out of gold. I think gold is quite grandiose. I don't know where she would have got the gold from in that moment. So, but maybe it was gold or maybe it was clay. The important thing was she was able to fashion, to create, and sit on this erection, sit on the phallus and impregnate herself. Now, there's also power to this story, is that also we are capable of impregnating ourselves. We are able to resurrect ourselves, because as she did that, she resurrected Osiris. Now, in the temple of Dendera, which is the temple of Hathor, which was a very tantric temple in Egypt, there's quite many images in one of the chambers of someone coming in who looks like a corpse, but it's basically someone who has lost his life force, has lost his, when you just don't have it, you just don't feel alive anymore. So they would come to the temple, and there you could see two beautiful priestesses and priests, and there was also the bird of Isis with the wings on the phallus. And slowly, as you see the pictures, the phallus is first flat and the man looks more like a corpse. And slowly the phallus is lifted. Life force is bestowed again through the body. The spine becomes activated, the channels in the spine, and the person is resurrected, so to say, or brought back to life. So sexual energy was a very important medicine that was used in the temples, because it brought beings back to who they are, back to their senses, and back to their life. Now the story continues with Isis and Osiris, is that when she resurrected the body and she impregnated herself, and she did get pregnant, is that Seth, through his own power again of sight, was able to come to the scene. He was so enraged and maybe so hurt by something too, that he cut up the body into 14 pieces, and it was scattered across Egypt. And eventually Isis, with the help of her sister Nephthys and her son Anubis, they were able to bring the body together, but it was never alive again. Osar became the only force of nature that was never part of this living world. He always dwells in the realm of the dead, or in the realm of the underworld. So Isis and Osiris make pretty much that aspect of us, the part of us that is always somewhat in the underworld, and the part of us that is alive in this living world. And her son Horus, or Heru, is that part of our soul that is emerging when the heart opens, and the will of the heart opens, the will of our being opens through this power of will, which is in the anatomy of spirit, Horus's domain, willpower, the warrior energy, the part of us that rises with all our might to see a new day. And slowly with time, it becomes more effortless, and he becomes that youthful aspect of our inner masculine, the part that is here, but it's alive, it stays youthful forever, because it's always somewhat in the divine child. So this trinity was really important. Isis, Osiris, and Horus. And maybe through the story, you might find little pieces that make sense to you. And sometimes it's the medicine of Isis that is really what you're connecting to, which is the energy of feeling your feelings, the energy of feeling your emotion, the energy of coming back to your senses if you've completely lost your mind, which may happen sometimes, the energy of crying, the energy of feeling that it's okay to feel that. And that is a part of also your divine nature. Anything that says, just be happy, just aspire to that, then we've disconnected to a part of our humanity. And that's probably why she's so loved and so part of many sister circles. It gives especially women these days permission to feel, to be as they are. She's also very much connected to the blood mysteries, to giving birth, and to the parts of women that and men that feel the grief of a loss of a beloved that has died, or the grief of something, if you have a breakup, or to tap into that, because there is a great reservoir of your power. Now, Osiris aspect represents that part of us that is more in the void, more in the dark vibration of matter, the dark light, that which you will never be able to see. But somewhat in his presence, when he really is embraced and invited, there's a sense of deep peace, like something in the center of your atoms and cells, that dark nucleus, something in there is enlivened, is made present, and awareness comes in. And in that, there's a great rest that comes into the body and the mind. So Osiris is somewhat that part of us that connects to that deep peace that knows I'm gonna die, or I am already dead maybe, and I'm alive, and I'm dead and I'm alive every moment. That part of us that starts to remember our journey of the soul is immortal. We're journeying through the stars, coming, going. And so with that, there comes a great peace with remembering Osiris. Also, the part of Isis that is very important in the story is remembering or putting together the scattered pieces of the self, and then also resurrecting yourself. So if you feel like you've been scattered sometimes, or you feel like all over the place in the mind or in the emotional body, to remember, okay, this is a moment where that piece or that Osar in me is a little bit scattered, but not to condemn yourself or to punish yourself for that, but to understand this is part of my living story. This is part of my humanness. This is part of my humanity, and resurrect, bring together those pieces, and with your life force energy, with your sexual energy, resurrect yourself. And you may have moments in your life where you feel like you're scattered, and there's other times where you come together. But in that coming together, some rebirth happens in yourself, something powerful shifts in your life. And this happens again and again. So that's Isis, Osiris, and Horus. Now, Horus was the beloved of Heteru, Hathor. And many of you who are tantrikas or tapping into tantric energy will feel like a deep connection to her. If Horus somewhat represents the youthful aspect of the masculine, she somewhat represents the youthful part in the feminine. That part, even if you might see a 90 or 80-year-old lady who still has that shimmer in her eye, who still, sings with the birds, who still picks flowers, who still laughs with all her belly, that is Hathor energy. That never goes. It's not something that is made only for the maiden. It's the maiden that lives within the crone. It's the maiden that stays throughout our life. And that's why she's also so loved by many beings, is like to revitalize yourself, to re-youth, to continue to stay youthful, regardless of what happens to the body, to understand that some part of you never really ages. So she is that shimmer of the stars that lives in our eyes. She's that inspiration that comes just when you feel like, I'm going to write a poem right now, or I feel like a song coming through, or I feel like I want to wake up and run through the fields and pick flowers because that's what kind of day, these feelings that you may have is a very Hathor-like energy. And her domain and the anatomy of spirit is imagination. So that it's like that spark, that seat where the artistry of our life is born from. It's the imagination. Like Einstein said, everything is imagination. Somewhat everything is born from that spark, that shimmer, that glow. And we don't even know sometimes where it comes from, but we just feel it and it moves through us. So that is her energy, the Hathorian energy. And in the temples of Hathor, those music, if you go to her temple, you will see rows and rows of musicians, women with tambourines, with harps. Beings would come there to heal, and often the music and the dreamscape would heal them. So by coming and lying in the chambers, in some of the chambers, and just allowing themselves to dream, because the soul, it's not like this dis-ease is pretty much just a disconnect from our persona, from our soul and the heart. So this is going to take us into another part. I just want to see some of your hands just saying that you're following and that you're here and that you're feeling it. Great. Woo, beautiful. So as we go to the second part that I wanted to share, that's all interwoven in, is the bodies of Ka and Ba and Ab. Now, some of you who've read the Magdalene manuscript might have started being tapping into these different bodies that were mentioned. And maybe these are completely new terms for you. So the Ka body was basically what they would call the ethereal twin body, or it's our body that contains our persona, our personality, our belief system, our conditioning, our everything that makes us feel this is me, this is me, this is my identity, this is my name, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. It's pretty much ingrained in the Ka body. And the Ka would come in at birth and would pretty much from birth take on the perceptions of the world around. That's the part of ourself that starts to say, oh, no, that's dangerous. Oh, yes, I like that. No, 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 I should be careful of that. And everyone, because of their own surrounding, of their environment, their Ka will be completely unique to another. So we all have this Ka body. Now, what happens is when the Ka is not merged with the Ba body, which is the soul part of ourself, the Ba, which is the part of us that pretty much journeys in the night, returns somewhat back to the stars and comes back. Now, if the Ka and the Ba are disconnected through the heart, there tends to be a sense of dis-ease or not feeling happy, not understanding why there's this weight in the heart. Now, that's a part of the journey too, especially part of the tantric journey, because to become activated through your entire body, you're not just making love to someone with your physical body and with your Ka and sometimes with your heart, but also the soul, the Ba, is really merging there with your bodies. So the Ka basically would come, and in these temples would begin the journey through the heart, and the heart would be touched by the beautiful sounds, by of course the beautiful by the rituals that were performed, sometimes the grieving rituals, sometimes the rituals of smells and sounds and colors, sometimes in prayer, sometimes in complete stillness. And we have all these types of rituals already in this world today, and different ones of you will go to different places to retrieve yourself, to heal yourself, to feel yourself again. Many of us are probably on that journey for a while now of going and retrieving parts of ourself. But then eventually that Ka will have to merge with the Ba. And that is the part where basically going into the underworld and finding, is your heart as light as a feather? So that's an incredibly important part of the journey, is how light is my heart now? And coming back and again, seeing how light is my heart now. And the heart is weighed by burdens, which usually are created from our persona. And so with the grace of Ma'at, with the grace of all these forces of nature, with the medicines of nature, slowly allowing the heart to uplift its burdens, its weights, its sorrows, its unforgiven, the unforgiven. And with that, the heart becomes as light as a feather. It's a beautiful thing to keep a feather with you sometimes. And many of those of you who practice or are into shamanism will already work with feather medicine, because it has a quality of lightness and reminds us of the part of us that actually wants to uplift our heart in the flight of our soul. So the Ba actually is depicted as a bird with wings, because if our soul actually wants to be uplifted, to soar, to be light of nature. So let's just take a deep breath. Yeah. So I want to also share about the Ankh, which is, as some of you may have seen, the key of life, and why that's a really important symbol is that the Ankh, you'll see it in every temple, and every temple has the Ankh, which represents life. It's the key of life or the breath of life. And many of these forces of nature, you see them in different temples together, and they are offering each other life. They pretty much put it to each other's mouth. They're very intimate, sometimes very intimate drawings of, their hands on each other and on their faces, and, bringing life into one another, offering life into one another. And the Ankh, which pretty much is like the fallopian tubes, and the entrance into from the yoni in all the way up to the uterus. So it pretty much takes on that form, and we're going to see a few photos of that in a moment. And also sometimes it's considered the phallus that's united with the womb and with the ovaries. So there's this symbol of our reproductive organs, or it becomes almost like a symbol of our activation of our life force energy. So this Ankh was a really important symbol, and maybe some of you have heard of Ankhing, or the type of Ankh breath, which is very much similar to some of the Taoist practices, like Mantak Chia's practices of pretty much just circulating the energy in the body to activate your life current through the body. Maria, can we show a few photos? So these are just a few photos. I just did them quite last minute, sorry to say. So some of them came out quite small, but nonetheless, it will give you a taste of some of the symbols. So yeah, if you can just see here, the uterus, the fallopian tubes, the vaginal canal, very similar to that of in a woman's body. And you also know that the Christ symbol of Christ, pretty much that you see in most Christian traditions, came from the same principle of the Ankh. But interestingly enough, they left out the circle or the hoop, which is the circle of life. So with that, they made a very big statement, because the circle was very important in the Egyptian culture, the circle, because the sun was circular, life, the spiral around the earth, around the sun, everything was circular. Even 360 degrees marked the number of days in a year, which is the perfect circle. So the circle is very important. And somewhat, I feel like by cutting out the circle in our life, we become too linear. And with that, we forget the feminine aspect of nature, or the circular, cyclical nature. And with that, the womb part of life is somewhat cut out. So this is the original symbol of the cross. And if we go to the bottom one underneath, yeah, so here's another one I found very beautiful, which pretty much shows also this connection to life itself. Yeah, Maria, let's go with that Ankh and the two. So okay, you can, yeah, whichever one you want to go for next. Great. Let's come back to that one at the end. Okay, so also you will see so those two hands that are extended symbolize the Ka, right? So when you see these two hands extended up, that is the Ka body, the part of the Ka. That's also an important part of being alive. And with that is also the sun, or the soul part of ourself. But and then there's the Ankh, and underneath that is the Jed pillar. Now, these are important tantric symbols too. So if you want to start envisioning those, if you want to start going deeper into Egyptian Tantra, these are all important symbols. The Jed pillar at the bottom is the symbol of Osiris, which is the erect spine. So if you want to work with tantric energy, your spine is going to have to become erect, which means if you have a tendency to not feel energy in your spine, or your spine tends to slop or move down, Activate your spine, sit straight, do things, breathe into your spine. So the jet pillar represented the erect spine. It was also a symbol of power and a symbol of resurrection. So it's that the erection energy, which is the last one, which you can see as the jet pillar. And this is Isis and Nephthys, the sister, which both are there to support the erection of the power within the spine. Nephthys is Isis' sister. She's the one who lives in the dark. So one sister lives in the light and one more in the dark. And there's something to that. Nephthys can see in the dark, which is an important part of our feminine coming back to the power, is to start to see through the dark, start to see the unseen truth, things that are veiled, and begin to feel between the veils. Can we go to the picture above, please, Maria? Thank you. So this is a beautiful image from the temple of Abydos, and it shows Isis suckling a full-grown pharaoh. And I love this photo. It's one that I've stood in front of for many hours because of the nature that, can you imagine being a grown pharaoh? You are the ruler of Egypt. You have so much power, and you're drinking from the breast of Isis. How beautiful is that? Regardless of how much power you have, you know you are powerless if you forget where you come from and where you are truly nourished from, where your source of power comes from, which in this case is Isis. Okay, I just want to also introduce the parts that are very much connected to the animal. If we can go up to just the one above, this one's very small, we will see that a being that has somewhat become illuminated often takes the form of an animal too, because the Ka body of animals has an incredible imprint, something that we can also aspire to, such as a lion or a falcon or a snake. All these kind of living creatures of nature are also divine beings, and so it's important to see that we're not in any way superior as humans, and as we can activate our own animals and the power of our own animal and different animals, we're activating our body, our tantric body. Beautiful, thank you. I think that's good. Sorry. Let's go to the one with the lotus flower. Yeah, just above it. Yeah. So someone asked if they have plant medicine in Egypt. Yes, they did. They had the blue lotus, which was a plant that I personally work with as my own medicine, and that others are starting to tap into, which can be used as a tea, or as they used in Egypt, also soaked in wine. And these would create states of feeling very aroused, feeling euphoric, feeling sometimes very connected to source. Love, maybe we could just stop screen sharing for now. Thank you. So yes, the blue lotus, if you are in your life wanting to activate more of a sensual energy in your body, activate more of a feeling of arousal, also wanting to maybe feel when you're meditating that your mind is a little bit more clear, the blue lotus is a beautiful medicine for that. It is not hallucinogenic, although you may find that you get sharper, clearer visions, or when you sleep, your dreams are more vivid. It was also a dream flower that supported beings to journey between the worlds, between the dream worlds, between the layers of the worlds. So the blue lotus was in every single temple. You'll see blue lotus everywhere. The scent is intoxicatingly fragrant and beautiful, and it has a way of uplifting the mind and creating such a sharpness and clarity. I love to use the oil when I meditate, so I just put it under my nose or on here, and I just inhale the fragrance, and it's so beautiful. So yeah, if you can get, I encourage you, if you want to drink blue lotus tea as you continue deepening in your understanding and practice of Egyptian Tantra. And also, before you make love, it's a beautiful tea to share with someone, and it activates something very sensuous in the body, as it was also an aphrodisiac. So whoever asked about plant medicine, the blue lotus, They also had the acacia tree, which I haven't experienced yet, but I know others who have, which has a very DMT-like effect. So it does take people on deep journeys. So yes, they did use plant medicine. And there's even some scenes of a pipe being handed, and they were probably burning blue lotus flowers and also inhaling the blue lotus. So yeah, the blue lotus is pretty much the signature medicine of Egypt. Okay, so great. Oh, that was good. We're very good. So I want to also take us on a shamanic journey, but before that, I'm curious if you have any questions, and I can just answer them. So where can I get Blue Lotus? Yeah, there's a few links in my source in Egypt. So part of a legend is that when Blue Lotus comes back to the River Nile, humanity will remember itself and become conscious again. So interestingly, in Egypt, every time I go, there's quite a few beings. They tend to be beings who for 20, 30 years have devoted themselves to the Blue Lotus and are finding ways to grow it, to bring it back to the Nile. And there are many lotus growers there, but they have very humble small ponds, and they use it more for themselves and for groups and for very precious oils, which are very rare there, and they're not mass producing it. And I'm glad Blue Lotus isn't a mass produced thing, and I hope it never does become that, like ayahuasca or anything, because it has a very, very subtle effect, and it's coming back into the world is very it's slowly coming back, but it has a way of really opening up our awareness, our consciousness, and our remembrance of who we are in the most simplest and subtlest of ways. So to answer your question, it's very hard to get it from Egypt, and you can buy it. Mainly, there's some good growers in Thailand and in Sri Lanka. And if you want, just write to me personally. I know a very good link to someone, and I will make sure that you can get it sourced that is ethical. Okay. So, so Horus is a falcon, and there's also the vulture, which is Mut, which is also found on many of the temples, which represents the crone. So as you walk through the gateways in the temples of Egypt, every single doorway has a circle with the sun, the winged disc. So as you're walking through, you remember the uplifting of your soul. And then there's Mut, which is the vulture all the way at the top. Now, Mut is that crone aspect, the feminine that is in the crone, the wise ancient grandmother that sees and knows everything. So they had a great reverence for the wisdom keeper or the crone mother. Great. So, all right. So the journey is going to go for about an hour, and about 45 minutes to an hour. So let's say about 40 minutes. You are going to have a break before that. Someone asked me where I'm from, so I just want to briefly share that I am half Egyptian, and I was born in London, and I grew up in Egypt, and I did my schooling and university in Egypt, and I pretty much speak the language, and I've been immersed in the land very, very deeply. I grew up in a very, very, very religious household. So the devotion was already there from a very young girl. I was already praying all night, like praying and learning all the scriptures by the age of 6. And then, so the soul part of the journey of the soul was always very, very, very important to me. And when I reached about 16 or 17, I touched in on a deep crisis, a very dark night of my soul, where I didn't want to live anymore. And I just wanted to die. And that pretty much opened up my journey with these mysteries, because I tuned into the stories of the underworld, and I connected to them so, so deeply. And some part of my soul just like remembered this journey of, the sorrow, the grief of life, and at the same time, the beauty, the sensuality, and the winged nature of my being or my soul. And Yeah, so I did grow up there and I speak the language and I'm learning to speak the ancient language right now. But at 21, I pretty much rebelled and left Egypt and never wanted to go back. Being a girl and a woman and a teenager there was so hard, so hard for me. It broke my heart so many times, feeling the shame of being woman, that I thought it would be easier if I left. But on my long journey through the world, I've traveled every continent, even the Antarctica, somewhat on a deep soul searching. And it was only sitting in the jungle in Peru with the mamitas, a great grandmother, her two daughters who are grandmothers, and the plant medicine and the jungle and being isolated in a tiny place in the middle of the jungle, that suddenly this very deep sense of remembrance of I have to go back there. That's my root. And it doesn't matter, I could keep running and running and running. But it was beautiful because, like the story of the alchemist, returning back, I was like, it's all here. All of it is here. Seeing the beautiful symbols around me, going back to Egypt, seeing the temples, revisiting the pyramids, which I did many times as a girl, but completely seeing it with new eyes. And I knew very deeply in my being that I am called to come back to Egypt and to restore and remember this ancient body of work, especially the sacred sexual part, because of my story of being so suppressed and so religious and so punished for being a girl, so punished for being sensual, that there's a sense of, no, this is important, so that beings don't live and punish themselves for being pleasure, for desiring pleasure, desiring beauty, desiring connection, but to accept that, to gift themselves that, and to return back to nature. So I'm not in Egypt right now. I go back in April, and usually I'm there for half the year. So, and one day I hope to return back there. But for now, I'm between Europe and Egypt. And yeah, I feel this is my soul calling to bring back the truth of what this legacy is, which I feel isn't Merkabahs and light work. And no, there's a deep descent work. There's a work with our basic core soul work and human work, coming back to feeling alive, feeling human, feeling that we're worthy, and also bringing in pleasure and beauty and the imaginal back into our life. So yeah, that's a little bit of my story. Beautiful. So let's take a 5-minute break and prepare yourself in that time, and we'll come back and go on a journey. Thank you. And bringing your breath from your root, from the base of your body, all the way up your spine and to your heart and back down. Breathing from your roots. And as you exhale, relax your jaw, open your jaw. Feeling the breath touching you from your base and arousing your senses open. Remembering the beauty of this life in your root. The beauty, the power that lives here. And as you inhale, almost like you're inhaling a fragrance. Beautiful fragrance from your root up through your womb, through your seed, and all the way up to your heart. And exhale. And now with the next breath, as you breathe up, starting to really feel your breath as a sensual force moving through your body from your base, moving from the back of your heart and all the way up and around back to the front of your heart, and then back down. And as you're breathing, you're feeling this almost like a cascade of water as it flows around and back into your heart in the front and back down. And you might even imagine the Ankh symbol here, the part that goes around the circle, back into the heart and back down. So breathing up from the back of your heart, feeling the breath just moving to your crown and back down to the front of your heart and back down. Now the second part, keep breathing like that, is to bring in a sense of pleasure as you do this. Find pleasure here. And as you breathe like that, breathe in even deeper from your base, really activating your roots, activating your sex center, your perineum. And you might even want to make a sigh or a moan or a sound as you exhale to the front. You'll probably feel your body vibrating. And feeling how this is beginning to vibrate your spinal column. Where your sex center, your roots, your action, your heart, your feeling, your throat, your spoken word, and your thought somewhat all begin to align, vibrating together. Feeling the power. Now bringing your awareness down to your roots and taking deep breaths into your belly, your womb, and exhale. As you begin to feel a fullness growing here, a fullness in your womb, belly, seed area. Allow your belly to become round, soft. And as you exhale, open your jaw, open your mouth. You may want to sigh, release a sound, vibrate your throat. Feeling the strength in your pelvic floor. Just breathing into the belly, rounding it, exhale, relax the jaw, bringing power into your base. And feel the desire almost to want to uplift yourself, but stay in your root. Beautiful. Now keep breathing here as we're going to bring some sounding here. Feeling this sensual energy vibrating in your base, in your root, in your tailbone. And now feel your first vertebrae and this energy just subtly moving into your spine. And the energy moves like a serpent, two serpents. A delicate, graceful dance of breath and energy, life force. And just moving through your lower spine. Until it comes to your heart. And just stay in the heart now and feeling the connection between your base, your lower spine, and your heart area. And find the motion effortless. Move with your awareness simply until it almost becomes fluid, very gentle, graceful, powerful. And now with your next breath, breathing it up, and from your heart, just feeling almost like from your shoulders, two wings expand. And these wings simply represent your heart wings. The connection between your heart wings and your root, your base, warm base. This energy feels warm, enlivening, graceful, powerful. As you're breathing it up, you're breathing it back down. It almost feels energetically like the wings are flapping slowly with every breath. Remembering sensual energy. Allow this to feel sensuous, arousing. Now lifting from your heart, your root, your heart, all the way to your throat. And feeling the expansion in your throat and the vibration in your throat area. Continue to move your spine, almost like there's water in there, just fluid motion. And as you feel your throat, feel the waters in your mouth, the waters in your throat, connecting to your sexual life force energy, root, heart, throat, mouth. All the way now to the top of your head. And just feeling these serpents just arise out like your crown on top of your head. As the energy moves up and down your spine. Touching all of these centers. Just finding your body becoming this instrument. And begin to open your jaw. Allow yourself to sigh and to make sound. And just bringing now your hands to slowly caress your body as you keep breathing this way. Serpents moving through your body, heart opening its wings through the throat, all the way to your crown and back down. And allowing yourself to touch and caress your skin. And make sure you keep breathing. As if you're making love to yourself, which you are. And from this place, your ka body, your persona, is activated by this force of nature. Bathing in these waters, drinking these waters. Being permeated, nourished, saturated by your very own current. Breathing, sighing, sounding. And as your ka is becoming saturated, your persona, with this force of nature, also feeling now your heart. How does your heart feel? What is in your heart? You may tune into your longing here. And feel your heart. And there may be a weight in your heart. It may feel right now light. But feeling the connection between your heart, your persona, your body, your sexuality. And remembering also the medicine of Isis. If you feel in your heart anything that's stirring a feeling or emotion, allow yourself to feel whatever's there. You may want to massage your breasts or your heart. And remembering the throat is very important. So sound, vibrate. When you feel into your sexual life force and your heart, what is there? Maybe there's feelings, memories. Feel them. What is the longing of your womb? The longing of your heart? How have you been with your body, with your heart, with your sexual energy? How have you moved with it? And just feel your heart, feel your feelings, feel the longing. And you can continue also to feel pleasure. Or you might find something else moving through your body, but continue to feel the flow. And your throat may feel quite tight, maybe. Sound. You might even want to do a hand scream or shake your body if you feel tight. Let the energy move. So if you feel like you're becoming stiff and not breathing, breathe by all means. Vibrate the body. If you're going into your mind, that means your throat might be a little clenched, so vibrate your throat all the way down. Keep feeling the longing, keep feeling the heart. Feeling this connection to Uset, to Isis, for those of you who are connecting into her lineage, the priestess lineage, this is the work. To feel everything, to let it move through the body, to not hold it back or swallow it, to not get distracted, to come back. So if you feel something moving through, vibrate, hand scream, move, shake, breathe, pleasure yourself through touch. Starting to feel the journey between your body, your ka, your heart, and your soul, and the longing for your soul to be at one with all parts of you, to emerge. Feeling the different parts, different memories. Just bring them all in. The parts of you that you've wanted to discard or separate from yourself. Hide them, veil them, feel them, slowly seeping through. Sounding, breathing. Caressing yourself if you feeling or touching your heart. The journey of your soul through this body, feel it vibrating your heart, your womb, your being. Memories might come back of your heartbreaks, of when you were a child or shamed. Breathe it in with the power of your breath. Continuing to feel the power surging through. Feeling Osat Isis within you as you feeling the fullness of this current, the fullness in your womb and your sexual energy. Activate your body. Awaken your body. Remembering your nature. Feeling the parts of you that may be opening, awakening. The channels in your spine, your womb, your seed, your power, your beauty, your divinity, your nature, your soul, your ka, your ba, your heart, your winged self, your serpent self. Ah. So, which part of you are you resurrecting? Allow yourself to seat and be seated, feeling that resurrection through your spine, seating yourself. The power in your hips, the power in your spine to restore life, to bring things back to life, to resurrect. Bringing more of yourself back to life. And feeling that joy of that. If you can, feel the joy. As we slowly bring this into an integration, bringing this into a slow completion, integrating these parts. Just taking a moment to just let it all rest inside of you, vibrating. As with the sun rising tomorrow, feeling the Heru, or that seed of Heru, of the sun, rise through you. A new day, rebirth, resurrection. Just find a way to bring that into an integration. Taking a moment to just also say thank you to yourself. Remembering the beauty and the grace, the power that you are, and the part of nature that you are, that moves through you. And just allowing this for the rest of the day, if you can, taking moments to remember this. So you might be drinking water, or you might be eating food, you might be breathing even sometimes. Or you might be with your partner and want to make love and activate this breath and this memory inside of you, opening your spirit, uplifting your spirit together, and feeling even lovemaking, it not just being about, just activating pleasure, but it might also activate tears, and it might activate feelings in your heart, even grief, sorrow, all of it is beautiful. So to enliven your body throughout the rest of the day. And when you go to sleep, just imagine like that sun inside of you is going into the underworld. Some part of you is moving into the stars, actually. And then when you wake up, that sun is rebirthed. The sun inside of you rises. So it's a beautiful taste, a drop of this vast ocean that is a lifetime of work, a lifetime of experiencing. But may it have touched something in you, even if there was a curiosity and a desire to know more, that you felt you had a drop of nourishment from the Egyptian Mystery School. And for those of you who would like to journey really deeply, on the 28th of February, I offer a 6-week program where 2 hours, where twice a week we meet and we journey with a pair of Neteru. So we journey with, the first one will be Geb and Nut, and then we'll move into Isis and Osiris, so Isis and Osiris, then Hathor and Horus. And each week has a theme, and we journey with twice a week together. And then there's also manuals and home and workbooks and rituals to do. And it's a very beautiful way to dive much deeper into this work. It's 6 weeks and it starts on the 28th of February. So if you're interested, please let me know. We have a group right now, and I can see some of the beings who are in that group are also here. And so that's beautiful. Thank you for being here. So yes, it's a beautiful journey to really take a deep dive, and it's very reasonable too, in the sense that it's welcome for all of you to do it. So just write to me if you feel called. And then also in April, I'm doing a 10-day journey down the Nile. So if that speaks to you, where we'll actually go on a visit. Of course, these days it's like, goddess willing, let's see, like, who knows? But the intention is to be there for 10 days, and may the borders be open for all of us who are meant to be there, and it be a journey of real ease and beauty. And it's my birthday, so I feel like that's part of my, it's like a rebirth kind of journey. So, very happy to see many of you here. So we're actually going to officially stop the recording, but we still have a few minutes. So if there's anything that you want to share that's really alive, please do. We're still going to be here for 5 more minutes. If you want to just take some space for yourself, you're welcome to get off the call. I highly recommend journaling or taking 5 to 10 minutes on your own before you start going into everyday life, just so you can, just let this, maybe drink a glass of water and just feel the sensations going down inside of your throat, down to your belly, or take a moment wherever you are just to be in this energy. And yeah, and then resume your day or go to bed. Thank you. So we are officially closed.